What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Reignited. In our last video, you saw us install the 3-inch drop coil springs in the front of our C10. In this video, we're going to cover doing the axle flip kit in the rear. Stay with me. All right, you guys, if you were watching the last video, you saw just how easy it was to install those drop coils in the front. In the rear, doing the axle flip kit, I don't necessarily think it's all that much more technical of a job, but I do think there's more components. There's more steps that you have to take. So we're gonna dive into it and we'll show you just how hard or easy it ends up being. All right, so our very first step here is I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing up on jack stands because you need the rear axle to be completely floating free from the ground. All right, so it kind of goes without saying, but I'm gonna say it anyway. On these old trucks, they're getting pretty old now. So all of the fasteners that we're going to have to remove, whether it be the U-bolts or the shock bolts or any of the leaf spring mounts or any of that, make sure you go ahead and soak them liberally in some penetrating oil before you begin. Preferably if you could do it like the day before or the night before and really give it a chance to soak in. That will give you that much better of a chance for success. If you have even one bolt that seizes or snaps off, it's gonna kind of ruin your time and it's gonna make everything take 10 times longer. So it really pays off to go ahead and soak everything with that penetrant first. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually remove the shocks from here, and then I'm going to remove the rear axle from the leaf springs. Then we can move on. Oh boy. All right, so you definitely don't need to fully remove your rear axle assembly to do this job. I removed it because obviously this thing's kind of a mess, so I want to clean it up, and also I want to do some upgrades to it while it's out. Oh, the fluid that's in there is nasty. I gotta show you this. Yummy. Gotta be some water got up inside here, but you know, it doesn't look really rusty or anything, but it's just gross. All right, so the last time we were working on our C10, you saw me rebuild the entire rear axle. I put 373 gears in there, a limited slip differential. If you didn't watch that video yet, I'll link to it right here. But I put in all new seals, all new bearings, so it's all fresh and ready to go. I cleaned the entire housing, painted it. So now the next step is we need to get the rear axle back underneath the truck, because in this video, we're focusing on the axle flip kit. But in order to get the axle completely reassembled, I need to get these backing plates back on the vehicle. And if you look at them, they've got 30 years of grime and dirt and spider egg sacs on them. They're absolutely disgusting. There's no way I'm putting these back on as they sit right now. So if you've worked on cars for any length of time, you know that cleaning and degreasing parts is a huge part of what we do. And it's really nice. Super Clean contacted me. They went ahead and sent out some of their products that you see here. They're always very recognizable. They have the purple bottle, so I'm sure you've seen them in auto parts stores. I've actually used Super Clean for a really long time. I always had a bottle in my own home garage. And if you worked in the automotive industry for any length of time, you'll have exposure to all sorts of different kind of cleaners and degreasers out there. I've always liked the Super Clean brand because they tend to run a little bit stronger concentration than most of the other degreasers that you'll find. And for me, with the stuff I do, I need the highest concentration possible. In fact, these come with a dilution chart so you can water them down a bit. I don't do that. I run these things absolutely full strength. There's several different options that they give you. I'm used to the original spray bottle, so that's what I was using the most. However, they also sent me this aerosol can, and guess what? This is my new favorite. I really like the aerosol can. It lays out really nicely. The coverage is spectacular, and it just foams up, and I really like the aerosol can. So I think that's what I'm gonna focus on in the future. But they do offer several different kinds here. Quite honestly, the Super Clean foaming style, I didn't really notice a difference between that and the regular spray bottle. They came out almost identically to me. So I'm not sure what the actual difference is there. They have the wheel cleaner available and they also have the floor dry. Now I haven't had a chance to give the floor dry a shot yet, but I want to give it a try and see if there's any sort of a difference. I suspect it'll be about on par with the other kind of floor dry materials that you find. However, I really like the aerosol can, so I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to use it on one of these backing plates, and what you want to do with this stuff is it's not designed to be left to dry on there. This stuff is pretty strong, like I mentioned, so especially if you're working with any kind of aluminum or painted surface, you do not want to let it sit on there for too long. Go ahead and let it sit for a little bit to let it do its work as far as degreasing, but you need to really rinse it with some cool, clean water to get all that residue off of there. That's the only way to really get it clean. All right, we've got the part all coated now. Let's really let that sit for a few minutes to really let it soak in and start doing its job as a degreaser. Then I'm gonna go clean it off and we'll see what the results look like. All right, we got the part all cleaned up and dried off. Full disclosure here, I did use a soft bristle brush to kind of get in the areas that are a little bit hard to get to. But honestly, I'm really happy with the results here. I think for an off-the-shelf degreaser, this stuff works great. Like I said, I've used it for a long time. But if you can tell the difference here, originally I was going to disassemble these units entirely so I could clean the whole thing. I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. I think this works well enough where I'm just going to wire wheel the back side of the backing plate and give it a quick shot of primer and we'll reassemble it. So now all I have to do is do that exact same process over again with this side and we can continue on with rebuilding the rear axle for our C10. All right, real quick, we're gonna take a look at the actual axle flip kit that I purchased. Now, I got this one off of eBay. It's from Tinworks Fabrication. The reason I went with this particular kit and not one of the others is because this is one of the few that I found that was still raw steel form. Most of them are powder coated already, which is a great choice, absolutely, if you wanna go that direction. I went with the raw steel only because I'm actually going to be welding the C-notches onto my frame rather than bolting them on as they're designed. Also, the axle plates along the bottom, I'm going to be building a set of traction bars, so I wanted to be able to weld directly to those as well. So that's why I went with the raw steel version. But let's take a look at what we have here. And already we're starting off well because he sent candy. Smart man. All right. One of our axle plates. Wow, this looks to be 1/4 inch thick steel. It's all laser cut. This is nicer than I thought it would be. Really surprised. Guys, these are downright burly. I'm really happy so far. One of the C-notches here. Now I believe, yeah, so this stuff is 3/16 plate, which is plenty, but it looks nice. Wow. All right, so these are the plates that actually go on the bottom side of the axle, and these are also look to be 1/4 inch thick. This is some really beefy stuff. I'm quite surprised. I honestly thought this was going to be a much thinner design when I ordered it. That's great. So I have to say, first impressions are pretty good. Like I said, everything is much burlier than I thought it would be. Very heavy gauge, 1/4 inch on both the spring plates and the under axle plates here. The C-notch plates are 3/16 steel, which I was expecting from the listing. Comes with the bump stops and the hardware. One thing to note about this kit is that most of your axle flip kits as a complete kit will come with the U-bolts, some new U-bolts. This one does not. I was okay with that because I'm reusing my original U-bolts. They're in great shape. I don't foresee there being a problem with reusing them. However, if you live in an area where you have a really rusty vehicle, you're definitely going to want to pick up a kit of some kind that includes new axle U-bolts. All right, so now we've seen what we've got here. Now I need to start mocking it up on the actual truck. So we're finally going to get into the meat of the work here. And the first thing we need to do is we need to remove the factory bump stop here. And that involves grinding off these rivets that hold it in place to the frame. So basically you take a cutoff wheel, a grinder, or a flap disc, whatever you can use. You cut off the head of the rivet, and then you have to punch through the remainder up through the frame. So we're going to remove the bump stop here. I'm also going to remove this exhaust hanger back here because I won't be using this anymore. I'll be building my own hangers. So bump stops on both sides, this exhaust hanger, and then we can move on towards getting our notch into place. All right, let's see if we get lucky and we can just smack it off with a hammer. Oh, there we go. Cool. Now you can use just a regular hammer and a punch to knock out the remainder of these, but I've got an air chisel, so I'm gonna use that. So we're all clear here. I went ahead and knocked out the remaining rivets underneath here. And for the exhaust hanger, be prepared. There will be an avalanche of dirt and nastiness that falls down on you when you do all this. These are old trucks, they're all covered in dirt and nastiness. And when you smack them or hit them, that's all coming raining down right on you, so just be prepared for that. Okay, now it's time to start fitting up our actual C-notches. So there's no actual directions that come with this kit, but I'm suspecting that this will only go in a certain spot. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure that up and see where we stand. Yahtzee! All right, so as you can see, we got our notch in place. We have our initial cuts done. I went ahead and cut it to fit exactly. It's a really nice press fit on there. I'm really happy with that. You guys have heard me say this before, but I really think the best option is to start small with your cuts and then go ahead and gradually cut off a little bit more each time to make it a perfect fit. Now, with this notch setup, it's not entirely necessary to have it be a perfect fit in there. You can cut it kind of sloppy and still slip it on and bolt it on, and it's not really an issue. But I don't think it's very professional to do it that way. I think the best choice, especially if you have the time to do it, is again, make your initial marks, cut that out, start small, and then take a little bit more off, a little bit more off until you have a really nice slip fit finish. So again, I'm going to be welding this notch on here in the final version, but for right now, I'm going to go ahead and drill a couple of these holes so I can bolt this thing in place and just temporarily support it so we can actually set the vehicle down and see exactly what our ride height will be. All right, got the notches in place on both sides. You can kind of see through the other side there. All right, so just a couple of quick things I want you to think about before you start in on this job. Before you begin your cuts on the frame rails, take a look at the backside, make sure there's nothing there that you're going to accidentally cut into. I know that on this truck, on the driver's side, it has the wiring for the taillights running on there, and on the passenger side, it has the brake line itself. So both things you do not want to cut through, so make sure those are well and clear before you actually start cutting. The second thing is, even on this style of kit, which is a bolt-on style kit, you're still going to have to remove the bed in order to install it because you need to be able to drill the holes on the top of the frame rails to bolt them in. So the bed has to come off at some point. Now on mine, I'm not doing that right now because it's just temporarily mounted. The bed will come off later so I can fully weld it. But if you're doing this at home, you're going to have to remove the bed to install it. Whew, man. All right, we are finally at the point where we're going to put this rear axle back into place. Let's do it. All right, I got the rear axle setting back in there. As you can tell, you do need to loosen and remove the rear of the leaf spring so you can get it to drop down far enough to get the rear axle back in there. There is not enough room with the leaf spring installed to slip it through. I tried that, that didn't work. Ah, what a pain. All right, we got the axle back into place. Got the U-bolts cranked back down. We're definitely going to have to address the pinion angle. I don't believe it's set at the right angle. I'll probably want to adjust that, but that's easily done later on. So Let's get the wheels put back on this thing and set her down, see what she looks like. All right, so I told myself that if I lower this thing down and it's at least somewhat level front to rear, then I'll leave it alone. I won't go any lower than that. But I have a sneaking suspicion that this rear suspension is going to end up being lower than the front, and there's no way I'm gonna let that fly. All right, let's get the blocks out from in here, get the jack stands out. We'll see what we got. Yup, rear's lower than the front by quite a bit too. Definitely got an airbag rake going on. It's kind of annoying. But on the plus side of things, I'm really, really happy with the rear. The flip kit works great. Ooh, we're tucked. I have no shocks in right now, so it's kind of just, woo. That's cool though. I'm happy with that. So there it is, guys. Axle flip kit in the rear is installed. I got about the 6 inches of drop that I was after. I'm really happy with that rear suspension. I think that's exactly where I wanted the truck. The front suspension, on the other hand, that's just not gonna work for me. It's still too high. Now the rear is lower than the front, which of course is a no-go. This is not a lowrider. This is not on bags. You cannot have the front higher than the rear. It's just not gonna work for me aesthetically. So the coil springs, I'm a little bit let down. I did pay $80 for them, so huge surprise that they were a 3-inch drop spring and they only really dropped it 1.5 inches. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it back apart. I'm going to cut one full coil off of there and then reinstall them, see if that gives me the overall drop that I'm looking for. I think the problem is that the overall diameter of the coil springs was much thicker than the factory ones, so it really didn't compress very much when I set them back in there. So I'm going to try taking a coil off of there. If that doesn't work and the ride quality is horrible, I'll just have to get a set of better springs for it. That's the only option at this point. Anyway, I hope you guys really liked watching the axle flip kit installation. It's not too bad. On a technical scale, I'm gonna give this one between a 4 and a 5. I'll give it a 4.5 out of 10. It's not really that hard. There's a few things you gotta be particular about, but it does take a little bit of time. It's a filthy job. I probably look ridiculous. I've just been wire wheeling and cutting. I'm dirty as all get out. So it's going to be a really dirty job. Go ahead and dedicate a full day to it. That way you can really just make sure you take your time and do things right. Not a lot of special tools needed. You're just gonna need a grinder with a cutoff wheel and a flap disc sanding wheel to kind of clean up the edges a bit. You need a drill so you can drill some holes on there. Like I said, you're going to have to take the bed off if you actually want to install this thing properly. But overall, it's not bad. And you know what, I gotta tell you, I'm really, really happy with the way it came out aesthetically, and I'm really happy with the kit I got. So again, I'll go ahead and link that down below. All right, so now I wanna hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments down below. What'd you think of the install? What'd you think of how the truck looks now? And if you have any questions at all, let me know. In fact, if you have just any general mechanical questions, I'd love for you to just list them down below in the comments, because I'm going to compile a bunch of them and do a Q&A video separately that just addresses all of your guys' random mechanical concerns. So really appreciate you guys watching as always, and we'll catch you next time on Reignited. Now come on now guys, did you really think I was going to end this video without showing you the final product on it? Come on, you know better than that. So what I did was I took the coil springs back out of there. I went ahead and cut off one full coil from each side. In retrospect, maybe I should have started a little easier, take off a half a coil first, because I'm really, really happy with the current stance of it. But if it does in fact settle over the next weeks or months as I drive it, yeah, maybe I wish I'd taken a little bit less off. But again, 80 bucks for the coils, who really cares anyway? I am extraordinarily happy with how the truck sits right now. Check it out. So there it is. I could not be happier with the overall look of this truck. The stance is exactly what I was hoping for out of kind of just a street truck, a little hot rod to run around in. It's nothing too low. I can still go over curbs and speed bumps with no problem. I don't know why I'm going over curbs, but I can go over speed bumps no problem, go through dips and driveways, things like that. I love a job like this, doing a lowering kit, because the visual payoff is so rewarding, because it just gets you so amped up about the project. If you have a project that you're working on, I absolutely encourage you every now and then to really focus on a project that's going to be a big visual or maybe a audio payoff on it, because it just gets you so amped for the vehicle and so hyped for the project that it can really help you to push through on some of the more mundane projects that really actually make it a better vehicle to drive. So there it is, guys. One more project done on the C10 with the 6.4 Hemi swap. We'll see you next time on Reignited.